Hi, this is Marsha.
And this is Kelly.
We are the 2Us of 2Us Fiber Adventures. Thanks for stopping by.
You'll hear about knitting, spinning, dyeing, crocheting, and just about anything else we can think of as a way to play with string.
We blog and post show notes at 2usfiberadventures.com.
And we invite you to join our 2Us Fiber Adventures group on Ravelry. I'm 100 Projects.
And I am Better in Motion.
We're both on Instagram and Ravelry, and we look forward to meeting you there.
Enjoy the episode. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Marsha.
How are you today?
I'm doing pretty well. How's Seattle?
It's good. It's warm here today.
Oh.
It's been, well, I think we've had the perfect summer. I've heard a lot of people say our summer's not been very good. I think it's been perfect because it's between, every day it's between 70 and 80. And that's just perfect for me. I don't like that 96, 98 degree weather.
Yeah.
So I think it's just been sunny every day. We've not had any rain. Just perfect.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. It was a little cool this morning, and I'm sitting in a sundress. I call it my moo-moo. It's the most comfortable dress I own. I bought it at Nordstrom a couple of years ago, at the Nordstrom rack, and it's sleeveless, but it just sort of hangs straight, kind of like a moo-moo.
Uh-huh.
In fact, it reminds me of years ago, my grandmother, when I would, stay with her in the morning, she'd get up and when she put on her bathrobe, but then after her bathrobe, she'd get out of her bathrobe and she would get dressed, quote unquote, which is she put on her house coat.
Right.
And it really was like you put on, all your undergarments and then you just put on this, what she called it, a house coat. Or sometimes like a moo-moo kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then she would do all of her work. And then later in the afternoon, when she was done doing her housework, she would put on a dress. Mm-hmm. And that's how I kind of feel with this thing. I feel like I have a house dress on or my moo-moo or something.
Well,
but it's very cool and comfortable. But it was a little chilly this morning, and so I put on my featherweight cardigan.
Oh.
Yes, believe it or not.
A sweater.
I'm trying to wear hand knits.
Yeah.
Making a point of wearing my hand knits. So I've been wearing I have 3 hand knit t-shirts that I made. So I've been I wear those a couple of times a week.
Mm-hmm.
I've been wearing those. And then I went out to dinner last night. And so I wore my featherweight cardigan because in Seattle it does cool off.
Yeah.
So I'm making a point, of wearing these things.
Cool. Well, I have a very ratty sweatshirt that I often throw on. And then the other day I thought, why am I doing this? I had sort of a similar thought. I thought, why am I doing this? I have that nice funky grandpa cardigan that I made. And so I grabbed it and wore that. And then I had to go into work to do some things, had a couple of meetings. And so I wore the funky grandpa that day because it was cool. Well, I'm not going to complain. I'm just going to state the fact, we've had weather in the sort of mid-60s the past
I know,
week.
Kelly. On my phone, I look at my weather and then I look at your weather. Mm-hmm. And I noticed it was like, you have a high of 65.
Yes.
And I thought, Kelly must be suffering.
Well, I've been in the house, which is dumb because it's not like it's too cold to go outside, but it's not inspiring. Mm-hmm. So it was conducive to getting a lot of spinning done. Mm-hmm. So that was good. And I got some housework done. And so at least it's conducive to getting things done inside the house. I'm not so tempted to go out and play in the garden. Mm-hmm. But I have to say, there's something really nice about going out in a cold morning and taking a hot shower in your garden.
Yeah, so you go out there and shower in the morning?
Not every morning, but I have done it a few times, yeah.
Uh-huh. Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's not exactly the way I envisioned it because, as I so often do, I forgot I wear glasses. So the view from the shower is not quite as good with my nearsightedness as it is with my glasses on. One day I just left my glasses on so I could see and took a shower wearing my glasses, which was really weird, but it was kind of fun.
That's funny.
The first morning I did it when it was cool, I thought, oh, I don't know if I'm going to like this because it's cold out. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to do it after you get out of the sauna. It's a whole other thing to do it to start your day. But no, it was really good. So I thought, all right, this could be a thing. This could be a regular occurrence.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I come down, I'll have to try it.
Yeah.
Of course, the next time I come down, it'll be in the winter, but we'll see. Still,
it might be.
Well, no, you're talking about a cool morning. Yeah, that's what you're talking about. So
exactly.
Yeah, I'll try it.
Exactly. All right, so I guess we should get into the yarny stuff. What have you been doing?
Okay, well, I've been working on, I'm knitting right now on my Twice Born, the shawl I've been working on. And I don't know, I haven't made very steady progress on it recently because I've been working on other stuff. I've been working on mostly the Summer Cardigan. Mm-hmm. That's the one with the llama and cotton yarn, a worsted weight yarn. And I think I can't remember what I said in the last... Oh, I know what I said in the last episode is I decided not to put waist shaping in.
Oh,
because
right.
I did increase the sweater at the bust line, and I was thinking I'd put in some waist shaping. I decided not to, and I think it's going to be fine. I've knit down probably 19 inches, which is what the pattern calls for. I want it longer than that, but I decided to stop, and I put the bottom on waist yarn because I wanted to concentrate on the sleeves. Mm-hmm. So I decided to measure the length of the sleeves. It was probably a good idea to do the neckline. So I did put the ribbing on the neckline, and then I've knit both sleeves down to the length that the pattern suggests, which is about 4 inches. So the sleeve would hit you sort of mid upper arm, and I want 3/4 length sleeves. So I finished one of them. You know, it's hard to measure. I don't know.
Yeah.
On yourself, it's hard to measure. Mm-hmm. So I finished one of the sleeves and put in the ribbing and bound off, and it hits me just below the elbow. And I think I want it longer than that. I think I'm going to rip out the ribbing and re-knit it. Well, the second sleeve, I'm going to at least make it this long. I want it to hit me halfway between the elbow and the wrist.
Right.
So the second one I'm going to make longer and then see how that fits. And then I'll go back and probably rip out the second one and make it longer.
Oh, that's a good idea. I was thinking you were going to redo the first one, but it makes more sense to do the second one the length you want, and then you can kind of decide between the two. Yeah. And
then when I decide if I'm happy with the sleeves, then I'm going to go back and figure out the length. So the sweater is designed to sort of hit kind of at the waist or just a little bit below the waist, and I don't want it that short. I don't want it mid-thigh clearly, but I want it a little bit longer than that. Yeah. So then I'll just pick up the body that's on waist yarn now and finish knitting. So it's coming along.
Nice.
But it's getting kind of fiddly now.
Yeah.
Because every time I pick it up, it's not really portable either because, I'm working on the sleeves that have that are on double pointed needles. So they're all kind of pointy and prickly. And so
right. You have to adjust everything when you pick it up.
Yes. Yes. And now, as I say, it's kind of fiddly because I'm having to think about everything now, where before I could just knit.
Can you remind me the name of that sweater again?
Okay, so it's from the company called Knitting Pure and Simple, and it's just called Neck Down Summer Cardigan.
Okay.
And I believe the pattern designer is Diane Susi.
Oh, right. I remember that name.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I like the pattern, and I like knitting with this yarn, too. So
that's the cotton llama?
Yeah. Yeah. It's Queensland.
Okay. It had a nice feel to it, I remember.
Yeah. And it's nice because it's blue, but it has these little subtle threads of black in there. Mm-hmm. So it has a lot of course, I think when I'm wearing it, people are not going to be looking at the yarn that closely. So the overall impact, is blue. But if you actually look at it, there's a lot going on in the yarn.
Yeah, the color has a lot of depth. Mm-hmm. Did you bring a skein of it to Stitches? There was one you were trying to match. I'm trying to think if that was the one.
Oh no, I brought the. Dovestone.
Okay.
Is it Ba Ram U?
Yeah.
Dovestone. I brought that.
Okay. I think that's the one I'm thinking of, but...
Yeah.
But it's the same idea. You've got color over... It's kind of like over-dyed over somewhat of a colored fleece, right?
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm coming along on that. And then I was also spinning.
Tour de Fleece.
Yes. Now, full disclosure, I did not spin every day. I have a lot going on, so I didn't spin every day. But every couple of days I would spin, and I got some things done which I talked about before. But I'm still working on the Targhee, and I have about a little less than a quarter of it left to spin. So I'm making progress on that.
Yeah, that's good, because what did you say you had, about 8 ounces? 5 ounces?
Yeah, it was 5 ounces. And I did pull off some of the yarn and made a little sample of a 3-ply or a 2-ply and washed those. And so I haven't decided yet if I'm going to ply it, which way I'm going to ply it.
Yeah.
So I'm working on that. And then I've been swatching.
Woohoo!
For planning for my next project. So when we were in Eugene for the Black Sheep Gathering, we went to a yarn shop in Eugene, and I bought the Fibra Natura flax in a colorway called Targhee. So it's almost like an apple green kind of.
It's pretty.
And
it looks a little more dull than an apple green, though. To me, there's something a little more subdued. It's not like it's a pastel or anything, but it's got.
Well, you're right. I guess maybe it is more. I
mean, I like the color. Maybe. I like the color a lot. In fact, it's when you said tarragon that it reminded me. You know how dried herbs, they're really green, and then when they're dried, they're just the color just dulls just a little bit.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that. I think it's a good name for the.
It's like dried tarragon.
Exactly. I mean, it's sharp. It's got a sharpness to it like the flavor of tarragon, but it's also got something a little bit less vibrant than an apple green about it. Anyway, I really thought it was a pretty color.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. Anyway, so I swatched on that. Let me grab it here. I did on size 4 needles and 5 needles. So now I have to wash it, and based on your recommendation, I'm going to throw it in the dryer.
Oh, good, yeah.
And see. And I did at the Knockers retreat. Elizabeth Doherty did a talk on linen, and she said some people find that they don't like knitting with linen. They feel it's too rough, I guess. So I did wash this hank before I started knitting with it. I didn't really notice a huge difference. It's not. I don't find it unpleasant to knit with at all. I'm fine with it, but so I'm excited. So today I'm going to wash this and throw it in the dryer and see how it is. And then the other one I'm swatching with is the Done Roving Yarns, the DK Sweater Pack, that big hank of yarn, which is funny. When I took it apart, I realized it's actually 3 hanks, but they just wound them all into one big giant hank.
Which looks a lot more impressive than a bag with 3 skeins in it, right?
Yes, and it worked on me because they must have known I'm a sucker for those big giant hanks. I went right to it. Anyway, so I've been swatching for that, and I think I've done... the recommended needle size on the label is 4 to 6. So I've done 4, 5, and 6, and I think I'm going to do a 7 just to throw that in there and see. I know already I don't like it, the fabric on the 4s. It's too dense. I don't think it's... and when I bought this yarn, the sweater I wanted to make with it is... it's called Cloud Cover, but I was reading the pattern, and you need kind of a drapey yarn. And I'm concerned that the Done Roving is 100% merino, and knitting with it, it's very springy. And I'm wondering if maybe the pattern Cloud Cover is a cardigan that you just you can wear it open or you can close it with 3 buttons, and it has you knit the body of the sweater, and then it has this really huge collar kind of that forms a lot of the front and of course the collar too. And it's done with rows of stockinette and then rows of reverse stockinette. And then I'm concerned that it's going to roll too much and not lay flat because it's so springy. And it actually says in the pattern that you want a kind of a drapey yarn. Otherwise, if you use something really springy, then your collar's not going to lay it's going to roll more.
Right.
So I'm kind of thinking maybe I need to pick a different pattern. The cool thing about, Ravelry, of course, is if you have a yarn, then you can go and look at other people's projects.
Yeah.
And someone made a cardigan called Coming Home Cardigan out of, in fact, the exact same colorway as mine. So I've been kind of looking at that cardigan too. Oh. So I'm still in the planning stages, which is kind of fun.
I know. I like that planning stage too. I have some of that to talk about of my own.
Yeah. So anyway, but that's all I have. So what do you have? I know you've been doing some similar things, swatching and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, first I'll talk about my Tour de Fleece. I didn't spin every day. I did have 2 rest days that actually turned out not to be on the tour rest days. They were just days where I ended up not spinning, and so I thought, well, I guess I better just rearrange the rest days for myself, because I did have the goal to spin all of the days of the tour. So I did that. I even did a little bit of spinning on the charka while I was at the conference, but I must say, it was symbolic at best. I edited the podcast while I was in the hotel room, so that was what I was doing more so than just I didn't have that much time sitting in the hotel room, and when I was there, I was working on getting the podcast ready to go out, and so not so much time to just spend spinning. Plus, I was making really good progress on those socks, the striped socks. And so there were a couple of times in the room where I was like, I just want to get this sock to this point before the day, before the conference day starts. Like when you're turning a heel, better to do that in the room, just because I have to look at it. And I like conference knitting where I've trained myself. I actually practiced knitting without looking. And so I am able to sit while I'm at a conference and watch and knit and not look down. But if you're doing something like turning the heel, even though you're listening, it doesn't look like you're listening. So
yes, and that's bad form. That doesn't look
right. Right.
Yeah.
So so anyway, I did a lot of work on the socks. So I got those Kobasi socks done. So I guess that is a finished object. I was thinking I didn't have anything finished.
Yeah, that's a finished object.
But that's a finished object. So I got those Kobasi socks finished. What else? Oh, the other thing, thinking of finished objects. Well, let me finish the spinning. Let me stay on one thought process. So I spun the CVM. I finished a skein that had already been spun, but it needed to be plied. So I added another 1 ounce skein to my CVM 3 ply. And I'm actually starting to like it more. I have it all piled in a bowl, and looking at it there, it's kind of it's an oatmeal beige color. And so in my head, it's this really pale beige, which is kind of dull, Sort of like, what was the one you made where Kim didn't like the yarn, and then the Lanata cardigan? Is that the one?
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, it turned out you really liked it once it was done, but in my head, it's like a boring color. But piled up all in the bowl, it's really not beige. It's more kind of a pale brown, tan. I guess the beige and pale brown, there's not a lot of difference between it. But it's a little darker than what it is in my head. And it's got some, I don't know, it's a little more interesting all piled together than just one skein by itself. When I would just take out a skein and look at it, it wasn't quite as interesting. It's kind of a cafe au lait color, I think. So I got another ounce of that. So I have 14.5 ounces total of that 3 ply. And I'm going to look at them and see if there's one that I can enter in the fair. So I might enter one of those in the fair too. I'm not sure. And I'm not sure if that's enough. I don't know the yardage.
Mm-hmm. Do they have rules about? I mean, you have to submit a certain amount of yardage.
For the fair, I have enough. It has to be a skein that is over 50 grams or over, I don't know how many yards, but I clearly have that many yards, and all of my skeins are over 50 grams. So it's just a matter of seeing if there's one that's particularly better than the others to enter. But I don't know if I have enough for a sweater, because I was thinking to make a nice cardigan, kind of along the lines of the Funky Grandpa, but just a more neutral color. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I'll make that sweater again, but something, just a plain woolen cardigan. And then I spun more of that same CVM. I'm spinning bulky because I want to make the Cowichan sweater, Orca's Run by Beth, I want to say Reinsell, something like that. Anyway, it's a Cowichan style sweater with whales on it, orcas on it. And I now have 35 ounces of that spun. So that's over 2 pounds.
That's a lot.
And I think that's probably enough. I'm not positive, but I think that's probably enough. So I added a couple of ounces. I added about 150 grams to my stash of that. So I didn't do a whole lot of the CVM, but, made some more progress. I applied the loop bump singles. I talked about that already. Oh, and I had a half a bobbin spun of a 50-50 yak silk blend, and I had decided, it's really pretty, very shiny, and I had decided to spin it. I don't know why I decided to do this. Every once in a while I think, I'm going to spin different from my normal, and so I decided to spin it like at about a sport weight. Mm-hmm. And this wants to be really fine because of the silk and the short fiber of the yak, but I made it be thicker just to do it. Probably not a good policy in terms of pilling because the yak fiber is so short. Mm-hmm. That whole talk I gave about ply structure. A very loosely spun singles is probably not the best application for a yak, but it's so soft and it's so shiny, so lustrous. Mm-hmm. And I decided it was between two-plying it and plying it with some of that silk that we got at Black Sheep Gathering. I had a silver. And I actually asked on Instagram, I put the 2 samples up. I was trying to decide. And most everybody, including myself, thought the 2-ply looked good, looked really great. But then I thought, I want more yardage. So instead of folding it and getting only half as much yardage, I did use the silk thread, and it turned out really good. It's a nice, soft, poofy, shiny skein of yarn, but it smells bad.
Oh.
I think it's the silk. I know when I did the silkworms and I had to undo the cocoons, there's a thing called Saracen on silk, and it smelled horrible in the kitchen when I was doing that. You have to heat it up and pull them apart and stuff to be able to spin it. So I think that's what the smell is. So I'm going to have to wash it a couple more times because I want to make a cowl out of it, and give it as a gift, but nobody's going to want that smell.
Well, so I think silk always has an odor, I think.
Yeah.
Silk, like a silk blouse or yarn with silk in it oftentimes has a...
But this is on the...
Oh, this is
on the bad
different
side. I know it's probably the odor of silk, but I don't know for sure. There was a moment when I thought, it's kind of a chemically smell, and I thought, I wonder if this wasn't really silk. It's so shiny. I mean, I know silk is shiny, but like this is so shiny that maybe this fiber is not really what it's advertised to be. But then once it dried and I smelled it again, it's like, no, that kind of does smell like silk. So, but it's just very strong. So I think I have to just maybe wash it again with a little stronger maybe a little hotter water and a little stronger soap. So we'll see. But it turned out the yarn turned out really pretty. It's a silvery gray. I think the yak must be dark. I do not know what color yaks come in, but I think it must have been the undercoat of the yak must be very dark, and then blended with the silk. It just makes a really pretty gray color. And then finally, my big project for the Tour de Fleece, I did not actually finish during the tour. I was bringing up the rear yesterday afternoon, finally crossing the finish line just after dark. I finished my skein of Santa Cruz Island 3-ply.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's about 80 grams. So it's not quite a sock yarn skein's worth in terms of weight. But I think I can still get a pair of socks out of this skein. Mm-hmm. And it is a fingering weight. It came out the weight I was hoping for.
Good.
Yeah. And it smells great.
That's funny.
I did have to wash it. I did have to wash it in really hot water this morning because it still was a little bit sticky. I didn't quite wash out all the lanolin from the fleece when I washed the fleece.
Did that affect how you were spinning it because it was a little sticky?
It actually, in some points, made it feel a little easier to spin. Mm-hmm. It wasn't sticky like if you leave a fleece and you have a hard time getting it washed because it's been sitting in your garage for 10 years. That kind of sticky makes it a little harder to spin. But this was just a little bit sticky and did not make it harder to spin. It's spun woolen, not totally woolen because I didn't do long draw. I did a sort of medium backwards draw. And I spent a lot of time picking out neps as I spun, partly because of my non-sorting of the fleece before I carded. Partly, I think, just the properties of this fleece and the carding cloth I have is not perfect for a fine fleece. Mm-hmm. So, and there might have been some weathered tips that broke off in the process. But it's really, I like it. This yarn it's still a little bit damp, and I'm playing with it as I talk. But I really like it. And I've been, the other thing I've been doing is like picking out any little hairs or, fuzz or little vegetable matter that's still in there. So yeah, this is more attention than I've given to a skein that I've made ever, I think, after it's been washed and spun and washed. But it's kind of like what I was talking about in one of the recent episodes about the honey, getting your honey. I was reading the instructions about getting the honey ready for sale, and it was about presentation. But I started thinking about this skein. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to enter this in the fair. So, I need to look at it. I need to kind of get it ready, not just throw it in the wash water, pull it out, let it dry, and twist it up and bring it in.
Right, yeah.
And I never really thought about that before. So, and thinking about that kind of attention, remember at Black Sheep Gathering, the woman who won the Black Sheep Cup with her fleeces? I talked to her at the end of the Black Sheep Gathering after you and Kim had left.
Right.
And we were just talking about prices of her fleece and things, and she was saying that her fleeces that she sells, that she would sell like for pre-sale, or that she wasn't bringing to the fleece show, she wouldn't charge as much for because it took her, I think she said, 2 to 3 hours for every fleece to get it ready for the show. So she, picking things out of it.
They have to skirt it, but then just even after they skirt it, the fleece itself, she picks things out.
Yeah, and then getting it rolled up and getting it in the bag, but if you have any second cuts, those little small bits that get cut, you can remove those before you send it in. And so I was thinking of that this morning while I was looking at this skein of yarn and picking out all the little bits of, it's the white fleece, so little bits of stray fuzz, pieces of my hair that got spun into it. I think the woman who has these, she must have a dog with short hair, because there were several places where there were little bits of eyelash size hair. I know it's not those are not my eyelashes.
Yeah, right.
I know I'm not losing eyelashes into not that many of them anyway. If I lost that many, I'd be eyelashless. So anyway, it's not anything that is, that I don't mean to make it sound like it's not it wasn't a well-prepared fleece. It certainly was, but fleece is like Velcro, and it collects stuff as you go along. So if I had a darker dog, I would have thought it was probably one of mine, but mine are both yellow. So anyway, that was a really big thing that I wanted to get done, but I'm still not finished until I actually take it into the fairgrounds and enter it.
Well, and do you have to put a label on it too, right?
Yes.
You have to design a label for it, or do they have restrictions but rules about the label?
I have to look at the instructions and follow all of those to make sure that I've put the right things on the label. I saved out a couple of locks so I can, put a lock of the fleece. I don't have an unwashed fleece, but I have a washed lock of fleece that I'm going to attach. And then I have some of the carded bat that I can attach. I have to make sure of what they want. I know at Black Sheep Gathering, people had little cards with lots of information about how it was spun, samples of the locks, samples of the carding, samples of the yarn, out of the skein, if it was a knitted project. Maybe I'll make a swatch, a small, a tiny swatch. I don't know exactly, so I have to read the instructions to find out that kind of detail. Because if I want to make socks with it, it might be kind of nice to have I will make a tiny, tiny, tiny swatch. It will not be a 6x6.
Yeah.
It'd be more like 1x1. A mini swatch. So anyway, that was a big finish. I'm not by any means finished spinning this stuff. I'd like to spin more of it. I think I'd like to spin some of it really loose and fluffy and like long draw worsted. Woolen spun, but worsted weight is what I'm thinking. Whereas it's woolen spun are mostly, it's not technically totally woolen spun, but it's about, I think this is a pretty much sock weight. So.
I'm impressed.
Oh, thanks.
Because I'm not, I'm impressed because I'm not spinning sock weight.
Well,
I'm not at that point yet.
I've been spinning for like 20 years.
I know.
And I did really focus hard on trying to make sure that my drafting triangle had the right number of fibers in it. You're actually looking at, I wasn't counting them clearly, but you kind of see when it's getting a little too many fibers to make the size that you need.
Yeah.
So I don't usually spin sock weight. I think it's more sport, but this definitely looks like it's a sock weight. So, yeah. Let's see, what else? As far as finished objects, the only other thing I have, I guess it's not an only, it's a pretty cool thing. I have mother bears. So I made the first two, and then I made a third one who has a dress. I had some red yarn and some red and black yarn, so I needed to make sort of flamenco style bear. Actually, how it started, this is how this happens. How it started was, it was going to be a red body, and it was going to be a bear with red fur. So the bear color was going to be red. So the feet were red, The feet were going to be red. The hands were going to be red. The face was going to be red. Mm-hmm. So I start with the feet crocheting. And I started going and I thought, oh, these would make such cute red shoes. So then they became red shoes with a little strap. Mm-hmm. And then after that, that's when the dancing bear happened.
I saw you posted it on Instagram.
Yeah.
Very cute.
Yeah, I think.
Now, I will say the Instagram picture that you posted without their heads was disturbing. And you got a lot of. It was funny, but also like, okay, this is really weird.
Well, I was liking their clothes, and I wanted to show their clothes, but yeah, I hadn't done their heads yet. So, and then day before yesterday, Knitty Barb posted something about how she does the knitted bears in their thread on Ravelry, and so I thought, oh, okay, well that gives me a starting place because actually, when I went to buy the pattern, you order it from the Mother Bear Project, and I ordered both the knitted pattern and the crocheted pattern. But the way their PayPal worked, I ended up only getting the crochet pattern. It probably was my mistake, but anyway, it wasn't easy to order them to say I wanted both patterns at the same time. And so I only got the crochet pattern, but that was fine because that's all I was doing. But then when Barb was commenting about the knitted ones, I thought, oh, I'm going to try knitting one. So I just followed her cast on and went from there. So I made a knitted one over the last couple of days. And I think having them as knitted bears would be good because it would be something that I could just put in my bag and leave it there and have it be like a sock. Mm-hmm. But I prefer crocheting them, I think. It seemed more fiddly to be knitting one. And I'm not a big fan of Magic Loop. And maybe that's part of it. I don't really care for Magic Loop that much.
Yeah.
But I got 4 bears done, and then I've been working on one as we've been talking. So. Well,
and you posted pictures. You found one of your bears, another bear, right, with a child. So that's very cool.
That is fun. They've been posting pictures since June. They've put up like 3 rounds of pictures of the bears with their kids, and that is really fun to look at those pictures of the kids. It's not easy the way their Flickr site is set up, but if I just put on the slideshow mode, I guess, I just put it in slideshow mode and then sit and knit and watch the bears go by. It's not so bad. And now that I've gone back, I went back since my first bears went in about a year ago. And so I went back, a year's worth of pictures and found 2 of them. And then in the last 2 batches, I've found 2 more. So I think 4. I've seen a total of 4 of my last year's bears. But apparently, it can take a year to 2 years before you actually see them.
Oh yeah, because you have to send them in, then they have to get them to to the child, and then they have to photograph them. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And post those pictures
But it's fun to see them. And the kids with their bears are, I don't know, it just gives me a laugh. I like watching the little slideshow. It's hard not to get a laugh watching these kids with their bears. Some of them are so serious, and some of them just look so happy. So that's fun. Oh, and okay, so I'm looking at my notes, and I just suddenly realized I do have one more thing. Remember, I said I was going to also talk about swatching gauges.
Right. Because
I'm planning too. So do you remember the Sincere Sheep linen that I bought? Mm-hmm. It looks like, I want to say it looks like Goldilocks hair. Mm-hmm. Or Rapunzel hair. It looks like Rapunzel's hair. Beautiful stuff. It's gold.
Yeah.
And it's lace weight linen. Pretty fine. I don't know. I mean, it's a light lace weight, I would say. And so I swatched with it. I've been trying to figure out what I was going to do. And finally I thought, you know what? You can't know what you're going to do until you swatch.
Right.
Because I have 1,200 yards. And then I had thought, well, maybe I would use it doubled because it's so fine.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'd only have 600 yards. And so finally I decided, well, just swatch and see. So I swatched with size 3. And I swatched with size 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't like the fabric with 3 at all. But I didn't really want to make a sweater with size 2 or 2.5 needles.
Right, yeah.
I was very resistant to that idea. In fact, I didn't even swatch with size 2s because I was like, okay, what's the point? If you like that fabric best, you're not making a sweater out of size 2 needles. But once I washed it, interesting. I don't usually have a lot of shrinkage of the swatch. With the cotton one I did, with the one cotton sweater I knit I did. But with linen I haven't had a lot of shrinking, but this one it shrunk. And also the stitches like neatened up really nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not quite so stiff, they've kind of nestled together.
Yeah, I'm just going to say on my swatch with my linen, the stitches are very open.
Mm-hmm.
You know how between the stitches there's that ladder effect.
Yeah.
If you pull stitches apart, you can see the ladder. This just sitting there, you can see the ladder.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that when I wash it, all of that will disappear.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's how can I describe it? It's like, when you, because I'm knitting up, right? So there's the bottom of the swatch and the top of the swatch.
Mm-hmm.
The stitch is really open, but then the part between the two stitches is really close. I'm not describing it very well.
I know exactly what you mean. So the actual stitch is narrow.
The actual stitch is really wide.
Oh, okay.
And then the two, the side of the stitch,
yes,
it bumps up really close to the
other side,
the other stitch.
Okay.
And then the ladder effect is actually in the middle of the stitch.
Oh,
not between the stitches, but between right in the middle of the stitch. It's weird.
Yeah, because linen is so stiff.
Yeah,
it's like well, it's not quite like you're knitting with wire, but the stitches
similar.
don't. They don't fit together nicely. And then when you put it in the washer and dryer, they relax and they fit together a lot more nicely. And so once I took this out of the dryer, it's like, okay, there's no need to use those 2.5s. The size 3 needles, the fabric for the size 3 needles looks fine.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to say which one I like better, I probably would say I like the 2.5 a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to use 2.5s. The size 3 looks fine. It's not like, oh, well, it'll be okay. It's not like that. It looks fine.
I'm just going to just take a little detour in our conversation about swatching. One thing I forgot to say about my swatch that I'm making with that done roving. Mm-hmm. So now we're getting off linen for a minute to talk about that wool. That stitch, what I forgot to say is the stitch is interesting. Doesn't matter even what size needle I'm using. You know how stitches, sometimes you'll have the right side of the stitch is perfectly vertical and the left is on an angle.
Yes.
And so so it almost looks like you have it just a straight line going up the line of stitch, and then the other side is all on an angle. I don't know what causes that. I noticed that yarn has a really, I don't know if I want to say it's plied tightly. That's not what it is. But the ply structure,
yes,
instead of being more, it's almost horizontal.
Yes, so it has a
as
really,
opposed to, what do you call that? There's probably a real technical
term. The angle
of
the twist?
Yes, the angle of the twist is really short, kind of. So it's almost horizontal as opposed to on a 45-degree angle.
So it's tightly plied. And most of the time, this came up in the talk that I did about plying. That happens with singles. If you knit with a singles yarn, you'll get that one side of the stitch is vertical and the other side of the stitch is slanted instead of both of them being slanted like a V. And you're right, it does come from the twist not being balanced. there's energy in the yarn, and so that energy is deforming your knit stitches and making the one side straight and the other side slanted.
So does it affect the, let me look at this thing again. Does it affect the fabric, or no, sorry, the fit of the sweater? So is your garment, if you did a huge, if you did a sweater, is it going to be twisted? No.
It might be a little bit biased.
Okay.
I would look at your swatch to make sure. When I did, like when you knit with singles, you can end up with fabric that is biased. If it's just all stockinette, and especially depending on what size needles you use, different needle sizes will make the fabric more or less biased.
Okay.
If you have that kind of energy in your yarn. Now, it may be that there's not enough in that yarn. There's not enough, imbalance in the twist and the plies to create biasing in the fabric. But it's something to look at in your swatch. You'll be able to see it in your swatch.
Okay.
One of the singles, when I did that singles experiment, and I had I don't remember what episode it was, but I have a good number of pictures in the show notes, and there are a couple of places where you can really clearly see the biasing in the singles. So yeah, I would just check it. And is that pattern a lot of stockinette that you're thinking of using?
Yeah.
Okay.
All stockinette.
Okay.
Now that if I do the cloud cover, it's all stockinette except for the collar, which has stockinette and reverse stockinette, which reverse stockinette is just stockinette, right?
The back side, yes.
The back, right. But the other one I'm looking at that I saw, this Coming Home cardigan, it's patterning. So it's stockinette combined with other patterning, so I don't know.
So that would be another reason that you might want to think about, you already were thinking about maybe that pattern, cloud cover, wasn't going to work. This might be another reason to go in that column.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. My pro and con column. Anyway.
So thinking of patterns, I have not yet decided what pattern I'm going to use. And I do this a lot. I will swatch for something to see what gauge I get that I like. And so now that I have my swatch and I know that I'm going to use the size 3 needles, so now I know that this is 30 stitches in 4 inches. And now I'm going to go into I've already started going into Ravelry, and I put in my criteria like sweater and knitting in the pattern search, and then I go down at the very, very bottom. One of the choices you have is gauge, and I put in a gauge range. So I've got a few patterns that I'm thinking about. I was thinking more of first I was thinking of a cardigan, and then I saw some of them and thought, maybe a pullover. But there aren't a lot of sweaters at that gauge, I can tell you. Not very many people want to knit more than 7 stitch per inch garment. So, and I really would like to use most of the yarn. That's another thing. You can put in your yardage. So I put in 900 to 1,200 yards. So I'm trying to find something that will work. I've got a few possibilities, but I've also got a sweater that I really like to wear. And I may just, I don't know, that's a little bit more than my capabilities, but I might just take measurements on it, and it's simple. It's just a drop shoulder. So basically it would just be a tube for the body, and then stick some arms off the tube, off the side. And then I just have to figure out what neckline I want to do.
No, Kelly, what you might consider is looking at the Amy Herzog and do a custom fit.
Oh, I forgot all about that. That's a good idea. I've been thinking about, what I could do to get what I wanted. reworking some other pattern that's at another gauge, or just doing, making a copy of this sweater that I like, but that means I have to figure out things. And sometimes I prefer... You wouldn't have to,
yes, you wouldn't have to work so hard.
Exactly. Exactly. And, I don't mind learning new things, but sometimes you just want to enjoy your knitting. Don't make me learn anything new. That's a really good idea, because then I can just say I want drop shoulder, I want this gauge, I want, or maybe I'll make maybe it'll be a cardigan. I think it would be nice. It's kind of see-through, so if it's a pullover, it would have to be over a camisole, but that'd be okay. I mean, I wouldn't mind. It's not like it would be too hot, to wear a shirt underneath. But if it's a cardigan, maybe that gives me more choices. I don't know. I'm still undecided about what type of sweater, but I really like that idea of the custom fit, because then I don't have to make all those decisions. Yeah. Much easier. I like that. Thank you, Marsha.
Once in a while, I have an idea. Anyway.
Oh, I did want to say, somebody was asking about shrinkage and your swatch, and what does that mean about your, like, while you're knitting it, how do you know if it's right? And this was Too Many Hobbies girl, Roz, I think is her name, was asking about swatching and what I find out. And, once it's washed, it's not the same as what my knitting looks like. And I will often use the swatch to reassure myself that when I'm done, it's going to be fine. Like when you, when I'm going to, while I'm knitting with this thing, it's going to look ugly. The fabric is going to look open and wiry and not pretty. And so then I'll just get my swatch out and I'll play with my swatch for a little while and be like, okay, yeah, I'm reassured it will be fine. And then I'll knit according to the gauge of my washed swatch, so my actual garment will seem too big. But then there will be shrinkage. I had about 1/2 inch of shrinkage in this a little over 6-inch swatch.
So let me ask you about my swatch and about washing it. Should I just throw it in the washing machine? I have some towels I need to wash. I just throw it in with my towels and then just throw it in the dryer?
I would.
Okay.
I washed mine by hand just because I didn't have laundry going. But then I put it in the dryer. Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's the way I want to wash the thing when it's done. But also just because linen does so much better if you put it in the dryer.
Yeah.
And so, you really want that softening up to happen. Otherwise, you'll never have a garment you like. So.
Right.
I might even iron this just to see what it looks like ironed. I've ironed a couple of things that I've made in linen, and they looked really pretty. The Josie vest that I made for my mom was out of linen lace weight. Claudia hand paints linen. It's a little thicker than this linen from Sincere Sheep. And it was really nice ironed. I mean, you wouldn't think of ironing your knitting, but
right.
But that one, it looked really, really good.
Sounds like linen needs to be slightly abused.
Yes. Yes. Linen.
Within reason, but a little rough treatment, So.
Yeah, it does. I think you need to break down. Well, think about like the linen towels. Those old linen towels that you have.
Oh yeah, my mother had
dish towels. How nice that feels.
Well, linen tablecloths and linen napkins. These old ones that are so soft and yeah.
I mean, that's how I want my shirt to feel. Not like it's a hair shirt.
Yeah, right.
I'm wearing burlap.
Right now, this feels like a scrubby.
Exactly.
Like it's something you would knit if you wanted a washcloth for exfoliating.
Exactly. And who wants to wear that? Nobody.
Yeah.
So the thing I like about swatching, 2 things, is that I can swatch first and decide on a pattern based on the fabric that I like and not have to worry, am I going to get gauge? Mm-hmm. I pick the pattern based on my gauge. And then the other thing I like about swatching is it's when you're not knitting with wool or when you're knitting with coned wool, that's the other time that I've made a swatch and washed it and used it to reassure myself. If you're knitting with wool from a cone, same thing. The yarn is very harsh. The knitted fabric is not so nice. But if you have that swatch, you can help remind yourself that it is going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's all going to be fine once it's washed. But
this is another reason why we love Ravelry, is that it has this. You can just do a swatch, figure out what fabric you like, and then you can go find a pattern.
Yeah. And if you can't, well then, there's always custom fit.
Yeah. Anyway.
So you'll have to listen next time. The listeners will have to stay tuned next time to find out which sweater Marsha chose and which sweater Kelly chose.
Yeah. Oh, I better get to work then to decide. I have 2 weeks to decide.
Oh, no.
Well, I'm hoping in 2 weeks that I finished my summer cardigan. I think that's sort of my goal, is to finish that. I reached the point, in a project, you reach that point where you just want to be done with it.
Yes.
You reach that, you start out all excited, and then you're kind of like settling into it, like, this feels good, I'm having fun, and this is enjoyable, and now you just want to be done with it.
Yes.
So that's where I am. I just want to be done with it.
That was me last night with that skein of, applying that skein of 3-ply Santa Cruz Island. I just want to be done.
Yeah.
Well, good. I think you could get finished with that in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, yeah, I can. That just means I get to watch a lot of TV. That's when I do most of my knitting. Anyway. Well, we have some other things we want to talk about.
Yes. I've mentioned before that we have a YouTube channel and that our hosting service, our podcast hosting service, allows us to just publish straight to YouTube. And so we have that. And I wasn't sure how much that was going to be useful for people, but I thought it's an option and might as well try it out. So we now have the podcast available on YouTube. It's not video. It's just a static image of our logo while Marsha and I blather on in the background as we do.
Yes.
But we have YouTube subscribers. And so one in particular, May, has commented about just about every episode, which I really appreciate the feedback, May. That's really cool. And I don't always remember to check. So I feel kind of bad when I find a comment like 2 weeks later that I haven't responded to. So I need to get in the habit of checking the YouTube channel for comments. I should set it up so I get an email telling me that there was a comment. So anyway, I wanted to just give a shout out to May, who is one of our YouTube subscribers, and then we have a few others that have come about in just the recent month or so. So there's Crystal and Caroline, Emily, Kathy, Catherine, Jennifer, Susan, Driver 31, and Gary. And I just wanted to welcome all of them to the podcast and to the YouTube channel, and to just say thank you for subscribing to us on YouTube.
Yes, thank you.
If that's the best way to get your podcast information, I'm glad we're able to do that. Yeah,
it's exciting.
Yeah, I didn't know, whether people would be interested in that or not, but there are some people who listen. I guess people listen all kinds of ways. Like, I subscribe to all of my podcasts, so they just come automatically. But when I first started, I used to go to the people's websites, like Stash and Burn. I would go to their website, and then I would play it from the player on their website on my computer. And then I would, go on Ravelry and look at everything they talked about. It's a very interactive listening experience. Now I'm a lot lazier. I just listen.
Yeah.
Right from my phone. But anyway.
Cool. Well, and we have something else to talk about.
Yeah. Because we had said at the last episode that we were going to have a member giveaway. We had over 600, I forget now how many, members we had. It was like about 620 last episode, and it's almost to 650 this episode. So we have drawn some names for a member giveaway. A thank you giveaway.
So should I make a drum roll?
Yes, drum roll. Oh, dear. Okay, so we have 3 prizes that we've drawn. So the first prize, let me just say, is a skein of Sincere Sheep round belay. It's beautiful. It's kind of a rust color. Very pretty. Sincere Sheep, she does natural dyes. And so this is a skein of her round belay. I believe it's a worsted weight. So the prize goes to our member number 610, one of our recent members, Veggie Girl, who is Tracy.
Congratulations.
Yeah, Tracy's from Santa Maria, California. And so I'll get that prize out to her if she just gives me a private message on Ravelry and lets me know her address. So thank you, Tracy, for being a member of our group and being a listener. So our next winner is member number 587, and this person will get a pattern of her choice up to a $15 value, and this is Minikin, also known as Jenny, and Jenny's from Australia.
Yay! Congratulations.
Yeah, I thought that was very cool. And then, do you want to announce our third one,
Our third
Marsha?
one is a skein of yarn that I dyed. It's sock weight yarn and a bar of soap. It's a goat milk soap that's shaped like a little sheep. And that goes to listener number 96, Wild Pony 2, Janice. Yay, Janice!
Yay, Janice!
So,
all right.
I'll get that to Janice. I'm seeing Janice this weekend, so I will hand deliver it to her.
Well,
isn't that great?
That's great. That's really convenient. Yeah, that's really convenient. Oh, you guys will have fun. You've been seeing all kinds of photos.
I saw Kristen and Later Knitter and Jade Chant, Julie, a couple weeks ago, and then Julie and Kristen and Janice and I are going to get together, I think, on Saturday. So, it was kind of so when we pulled the names, we were so pleased that Janice's name was pulled because we see her quite a bit.
She has been a member, with a number like 96. She's been a member almost from the very, very beginning of the podcast. She's actually the person who coined the term spirit yarn for us. Yeah. So she's one of our most loyal listeners. So that's very nice. All right. So a couple of newer listeners and one of our listeners from way back.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. That was fun. We'll have to do that. We'll have to do member drawings more often.
We better get dyeing then. We better get shopping. Ooh, Kelly, more shopping.
Yes. Ooh.
Okay. So do we have any more business? I think that's it.
Just one thing that I wanted to mention. I've mentioned it before, but I just want to reiterate. And that is about the fleece judging that is happening at the Monterey County Fairgrounds on August 12th. It starts at 9 a.m. and goes into the afternoon. If you are in the area and you're interested, those are the details. If you need more information about it, it's hard to find it. Our fair does not do a very good job on their website of highlighting and promoting the fleece judging or the auction. So if you are having trouble and you want more information, just get in contact with me. Contact me on Ravelry. I am 100 Projects. You can send me a message or you can email 2use at 2usefiberadventures.com. August 12th. And it starts at 9 a.m. All right. I think that's all the announcements.
All right.
Yep.
All right.
Last page of my notes.
Let's get back to knitting then. Knitting and spinning.
Okay. Yes.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. To subscribe to the podcast, visit 2usfiberadventures.com. We have links for iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, and others.
Join us on our adventures on Ravelry and Instagram. I am Better in Motion, and Kelly is 100 Projects.
Until next time, we're the 2Us
doing our part for World Fleece.